Your heavenly Father is the one who breathed life into you. You've been fearfully and wonderfully made.
Imagine discovering that everything you were raised to become wasn't wrong, just incomplete. Imagine watching millions find comfort in words that make life simpler, while you slowly realize life isn't simple at all. Joel Osteen built a message heard around the world, but his own son discovered something inside that message that couldn't survive a spotlight. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. From the outside, Lakewood looks like a church, but step back far enough and it stops looking spiritual and starts looking mechanical. Every week, tens of thousands move through the same doors at the same time. Cameras switch on, lights rise, screens glow, smiles appear on cue. The building itself was never meant for worship. It was built for basketball, a former NBA arena converted into a place where belief is staged, timed, and broadcast. 45,000 seats, millions watching from home, sermons measured not just by meaning, but by reach, by engagement, by applause. None of this started as a master plan. Joel Osteen didn't grow up wanting to be the face of anything. For years, he stayed behind the cameras, editing footage, avoiding the microphone. He didn't inherit the pulpit by ambition. He inherited it by circumstance. And when he finally spoke, he found something that worked. Not fire, not fear, hope. Short sentences, big promises. God wants good things for you. Say it enough times and people believe it. Believe it enough times and crowds grow. Crowds grow and systems form. Systems demand consistency. Consistency demands certainty. And certainty leaves very little room for questions, especially questions that slow things down, especially questions that complicate the message. Over time, the metrics replaced the mystery. Attendance mattered. Book sales mattered. Reach mattered. The machine didn't need doubt. It needed flow. Smooth, predictable, repeatable. And once a system reaches that scale, it no longer asks what is true, it asks what works. That's when something subtle happens. Faith stops being explored and starts being managed. And anyone standing close enough can feel the shift, especially someone who grew up watching it from the inside. From the moment Jonathan was born, the path was already laid out, not written down, not spoken out loud, just understood. This is how systems protect themselves. They turn legacy into destiny. As a child, Jonathan was placed in front of cameras before he could choose where to look, smiling at charity events, standing beside his parents on stages built for certainty. Millions watched him grow up without ever asking if he wanted to be seen. To the outside world, the family looked effortless, blessed, aligned. But inside the system, roles were forming. His sister moved toward the light naturally. She spoke easily. She thrived with attention. She sounded like the future everyone expected. Jonathan moved the other way. He listened more than he spoke. He gravitated toward music, not microphones, keys instead of sermons, sounds instead of statements. While one child learned how to command a room, the other learned how to disappear into it. But systems don't reward difference, they reward alignment. And over time, the question began to surface again and again, quietly at first, then louder. When are you going to preach? When are you going to step up? When are you going to take your place? Each question carried an assumption that there was only one way forward, that fulfillment looked like succession, that faith meant becoming a copy. Imagine that pressure for a second, not to fail, but to become someone else entirely. Not to choose wrong, but to choose nothing at all. Because in a legacy built on continuity, choosing yourself can feel like betrayal. And that's where the trap closes, when staying means disappearing, and leaving means finally being seen. But here's the part that matters most. Jonathan didn't explode out of that pressure. He didn't reject it publicly. He didn't fight it. He did something far more unsettling. He went quiet. And that silence was about to become impossible to ignore.
Jonathan didn't quit with a statement. He didn't stage a scandal. He didn't argue on camera or in print. He just stepped back, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Instagram posts faded. Appearances at Lakewood became sporadic. Photos were quietly removed from the church website. No press releases, no interviews, just absence. And yet, in a system built on visibility, absence is louder than words. People noticed. Rumors spread. Some said he lost faith entirely. Others whispered of family disputes over money or theology. But those close to the family told a different story. He wasn't angry. He wasn't rebelling. He was asking questions, hard questions, that the machine didn't allow. Why do believers still suffer if faith guarantees blessing? If positivity promises success, what about those who failed despite trying? Where does sacrifice fit into a faith built on abundance? And the more he watched, the more he understood. The system, the stage, the empire, it demanded simplified certainty. And to participate fully meant abandoning curiosity. To remain meant performing endlessly. Every smile measured, every word scrutinized, every action broadcast. For someone like Jonathan, the choice became clear. Stay and surrender your questions, or leave and preserve them. And when he left, he didn't shout it. He didn't need to. Silence spoke for him. And here's the part that unsettles people the most. Silence in a world built on spectacle becomes evidence. It whispers truths the system can't acknowledge. It hints at cracks in the foundation. And for millions watching unknowingly, that absence is louder than any sermon could ever be. Because sometimes the most radical act isn't to challenge, it's to walk away. And in that simple choice lies a truth no one was supposed to see. The first glimpse of what Jonathan truly discovered didn't come in headlines. It came in words carefully hidden from the public in a literary magazine, anonymously. The essay, titled "The Sound of Leaving," wasn't a takedown, it wasn't a confession, it was reflection, and anyone paying attention recognized it immediately. I was backstage watching my father speak to thousands. He was saying all the right things, things that made people feel good, things that would sell books and fill stadiums. And I believed he believed them, but I also knew there was so much he wasn't saying, so much complexity and doubt and struggle that the message didn't allow for. I would rather spend my life exploring those difficult truths with a handful of people than repeating simplified certainties to thousands. Those lines aren't accusations, they're observations, they're questions dressed as statements, and they reveal something remarkable. Jonathan wasn't rejecting faith, he wasn't attacking his father, he was rejecting the simplification of it, the reduction of wonder, doubt, and struggle into consumable pieces of hope. That's the discovery, that's the truth no one was supposed to see. That within the empire built on certainty, questions can feel like betrayal, that depth can feel like rebellion, that leaving quietly can speak louder than a sermon ever could. And what's striking is the elegance of his choice. No confrontation, no spectacle, just honesty, just subtlety, just a life real enough to contain the questions that the system could not. And the tension remains. How do you honor faith and truth when the structures around you demand only clarity and compliance? The answer Jonathan offers isn't loud, but it's impossible to ignore. Silence, carefully placed, can be more revealing than any accusation. And as his essay spread quietly, one thing became obvious. Some truths, once glimpsed, can't be unseen.
What Jonathan discovered wasn't scandal. It wasn't corruption. It was something far more profound. Faith, at scale, becomes a product. The more people depend on certainty, the less room there is for doubt. Influence demands clarity. Peace demands freedom, and rarely do the two coexist. He saw the cost, the constant performance, the endless smiles, the invisible toll of maintaining an image built for millions. He saw how questions are quieted, how nuance is traded for comfort, and he realized something else. Walking away isn't failure. Walking away isn't denial. Walking away can be a kind of faith, a faith that values truth over applause, that values depth over reach, that chooses inner life over external validation. Jonathan didn't reject hope, he rejected its packaging. He didn't leave because he hated what was preached. He left because he wanted to live what was true. He wanted a faith that could handle doubt, a life that could handle silence. And in that decision lies the most important lesson. Sometimes the most radical act is not to shout louder, it's to stop performing at all. It's to reclaim the questions, the uncertainties, the contradictions. It's to allow life to remain complicated, because only in complexity can freedom exist. And as he moved into music, quiet spaces, and small intentional communities, he was not running from spirituality, he was running toward it, toward an authenticity that no stage, no system, no audience could provide. And in that quiet choice, there's a revelation the world rarely sees. That the things most people chase, fame, influence, certainty, may not be what faith or life actually offers. Sometimes freedom is only found when you step off the stage, when you stop performing, and when you choose the questions that everyone else is too afraid to ask. So where does that leave Lakewood Church? Where does it leave the empire built on hope, positivity, and endless spectacle? Joel Osteen still preaches every Sunday. His daughter has stepped into the spotlight, co-hosting services, writing books, continuing the legacy. But one seat remains empty, one voice that could have carried the message, chosen not to. And that absence raises questions no one wants to answer. What happens to a church built around one personality when that personality's own child chooses a different path? What happens to a message that promises blessing when the messenger closest to it steps away quietly, without protest, without drama? And perhaps most unsettling, what if Jonathan saw something the rest of us are just beginning to understand? Something beyond money, beyond reach, beyond applause. Something about faith, life, and freedom that the empire cannot contain. The question hangs there, heavy. The world continues to watch sermons broadcast to millions, books sold by the tens of millions, but in one small apartment, music quietly plays, carrying truths the stage cannot touch. And the story doesn't end here, because last month, Lakewood announced plans for expansion, for new programs, for something the public isn't fully seeing yet. Could it be that Jonathan's departure was not the end of a story, but the beginning of one the world isn't ready for? And if that's true, what else lies hidden, waiting to be understood, waiting to be seen? The story of Jonathan Osteen isn't about rebellion. It isn't about family conflict or scandal. It's about choices, the ones we make when the world expects a script we don't want to follow. He could have inherited an empire. He could have smiled on giant screens, preached from the pulpit, sold books, and walked a path millions would envy. But he didn't. He chose music over sermons, privacy over fame, questions over simplified answers. And in that choice lies the most profound discovery of all. Freedom is rarely found in conformity. It is found in courage. The courage to walk away, to face uncertainty, to honor depth over applause. Joel Osteen built influence, legacy, and reach. Jonathan Osteen built peace, authenticity, and a life unmeasured by metrics. Two paths, one family, and a truth that can't be staged. Sometimes the most radical act is silence. Sometimes leaving isn't giving up. It's finding something far greater than the world can broadcast. And as Lakewood prepares for its next chapter, expanding, building, performing, one question lingers in the quiet spaces between the lights and cameras. Will the empire ever encounter the truths its own walls were never built to hold? Or has the one who left quietly already discovered a life the rest of us are only beginning to glimpse? And if that's true, what else lies hidden, waiting to be understood, waiting to be seen?